There's been a lot of toque, a lot of wearing a
Oh,
toque,
hey.
toque here.
I guess we're live. Hi, everyone who's tuning in. I am Dr. Alex Lee. This is Dr. Mohsen Kazemi. Maybe he can wave. There we go. And Dr. Kent Stuber. And the three of us are from Canada. So we are excited to speak to all of you. And what we're here to talk about today is the Sports Chiropractic edition of the Journal of the Canadian Chiropractic Association. So maybe just a quick introduction. So Dr. Kent Stuber here is the editor-in-chief of the JCCA, and then Mohsen Kazemi is the assistant editor of the JCCA, particularly the sports chiropractic issue. And maybe just really briefly, I'll just ask them to maybe give a brief about the background, their training, and where they work. And then we'll just kind of launch into things. So maybe we'll start with Dr. Kent Stuber.
Sure. Thanks, Alex. Yeah, I'm a chiropractor and just received my PhD from the University of South Wales last year. I'm currently working for Parker University in their research center, and I've been involved with sports chiropractic research pretty much since I first started into chiropractic research. It's always been an interest. I've always seen lots of athletic patients, have a bit of an athletic background myself. So it's definitely an area of passion for me. And I'm very happy to support sports chiropractic in Canada in any way I can.
Excellent. Thanks. Dr. Kazemi.
Yes, hi. I'm a chiropractor as well. I did my PhD in South Wales University as Kent did in 2017. I have been around sports chiropractic since a long time ago, and been traveling with Team Canada, mainly Taekwondo, but I've been in many like four Olympics and many World Championships and games. I teach at the Chiropractic College, Canadian Memorial Chiropractic College. I'm full officer, and I run the sports residency program.
Great. I guess maybe a little bit about myself. I'm a sports chiropractor in Canada. I teach at CMCC, and the two of them influenced me. And I actually just recently got accepted to a PhD program at the University of South Wales. And I chair the Research and Education Committee of the Royal College of Chiropractic Sports Sciences Canada. So that's our specialty sport college in Canada. And I sit on the FICS Research Commission. So I'm super excited to be involved in all that. So why don't we launch into this? And maybe for listeners who don't know much about the JCCA, maybe Kent, if you don't mind, maybe telling people about the JCCA, its scope, mission, and other useful things to know about the journal.
Sure. Thanks, Alex. The JCCA it's the Journal of the Canadian Chiropractic Association. So we are the official journal of the CCA. It's back in olden times, we used to have a print edition that went out for each edition went out free to all members of the Canadian Chiropractic Association, and then a few associated people as well. But in the current model, we are completely online, and so we're completely it's available for free to everyone worldwide. Is now the larger scope. So while we do still retain very much a Canadian identity, we are trying to encourage authors, readers, peer reviewers, editorial board members. We're trying to encourage more of a global and embrace more of a global vision and be more involved globally. And the sports edition is a great way for us to engage in that manner.
Yeah, that's great. That you mentioned that the JCCA is reaching out to be more global. And I know in previous sports chiropractic versions, there's been some great research out of like Australia, some
Absolutely.
Great sports chiropractic research out of Australia that's been published there. And there's definitely been some international papers. And, I think for, practitioners in the field all around the world, sometimes the hardest is access, right? So if you're not tied to an academic institution, how do you get good access to peer-reviewed scholarly research? And the nice thing about JCCA is it's open access and it's online. So I know that's fantastic for us. Thanks for that. And actually, maybe so. Yeah, the JCCA has this yearly sports chiropractic issue, and I know Dr. Kazemi was pretty instrumental in this. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the sports chiropractic issue and how it all started, how it all came about?
Yeah, sure. So I've been running the sports residency program at chiropractic CMCC since 2003. So it was one of the up to, I believe, 2002, 1996 to 2002. We had a journal of chiropractic rehabilitation and sports sciences kind of thing, sports chiropractic and rehabilitation journal, which was actually a branch of JMPT, which was a great place to showcase sports chiropractic research. And then that stopped. And then after that, I was thinking, we have all of these great papers that are coming out, and mainly when I was working with my residents, and their requirements at the time was for case reports and original research paper and lit review, and Alex, you were one of them. It was where do we showcase them? Where is it that we would be able to put them all together? And the fact that the sports chiropractic research was so in infancy, still is. Still, we need a lot of research to put some evidence for what we do as a sports chiropractor. So that was my thinking. If I can open up and start up a journal, that's what my thought was. And then I look at what is required. So, that's not for me. So I talked to Dr. Alan Gottlieb at that time, and I said, great guy, amazing guy. He was for those who don't know, Dr. Alan Gottlieb, he was the chief editor of the JCCA before Dr. Stuber. I talked to him and said, hey, we need a place to showcase this. Do you think we can start one? And he says, you know what, why don't we just start an issue? We can do an annual special issue on the sports chiropractic on JCCA, and I loved it because JCCA was very it was listed on PubMed, free access, all of those, and that was wow. When he said it, I said yes, let's do it. So we started that I talked to Alan 2007, I believe. 2008, we got it together, put the calls out. In 2009 was the first one that we put out, and the readership was great. Everybody was very amazed by it, and that's when and how it started off.
That's fantastic, and I guess since its inception, maybe for the both of you, what has been the impact of this yearly sports chiropractic issue on sports chiropractic here in Canada, or even beyond?
Can you go for it? Yeah, sure.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Kazemi. I think the impact of it, when you look at 14 years worth of issues, and we usually run somewhere between 8 and 12 articles per issue. That means that there's minimum 100 articles on sports chiropractic that have been published in a peer-reviewed journal, that have appeared in PubMed. So that's a lot to help building that base of support for here's what sports chiropractors can do. Here are the results that you can see. Here are some of the interesting things that sports chiropractors see and do in their daily lives, working with athletes and athletic populations. So I think that's one of the important things. It's also created a venue where, say someone like Dr. Kazemi's research on Taekwondo, he can then go to larger governing bodies and say, look at the research that we've been able to publish, and here are the papers for you to review. So if he's going to international bodies or the Canadian Taekwondo associations or bodies, it gives some of our researchers and some of our advocates give them some backup and some support to really help with that. And it's been able to engage researchers from, some researchers from around the world, and, speaking selfishly, in Canada, especially CMCC having the residency program, there's also a field practitioner program. And there are requirements for them to complete different types of research. This gives a natural kind of fit for where a lot of those folks, residents, will approach and be initially targeting as, okay, I'm going to try and submit this to the JCCA Sports Edition and see if we can get it in. So it's become a bit of a target for people in the sports chiropractic community in Canada, for sure.
Yeah.
That's.
I mean, the other fact with regards to the JCCA, for me personally, especially with my sportsman taekwondo and studies, a lot of my readers, or the coaches and the athletes and researchers in taekwondo, they're not very wealthy, so they really can't pay $30-40 for an article all around the world, especially in a third world country, and this made it very accessible for a lot of them. So a lot of my research, when I say, hey, it's open access, you don't need to pay, I just put it out and it goes. So that's one part of it, and also that aspect of it, that the researchers, the authors, they don't need to pay anything. It also opens up a door for a lot of new researchers, field practitioners, clinicians, that they don't really want to spend $3,000 to $4,000 just the fee for publication. I think these are all together, and the fact that JCCA has a great reputation among chiropractors, among outside. Although the what do we call it? The impact factor is not that much, but there's a big argument about impact factor that I'm not even going in there. I think that the impact factor is that who is it that you want to read your paper, and how fast they can get a hold of it. And I think that that's what JCCA has, and has been great for all of our students, or all the other clinicians who wanted to do something in sports.
That's those are great points. And I think maybe I just like to highlight and reiterate that not only is it open access, but there's no publication fee at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And that's huge, because open access publication fees from other journals can be around like at least 3,000 Canadian dollars, right? Which is pretty pricey. And if you don't have a grant, how are you going to publish it there? And you want people to read your research. It's indexed in PubMed, so that's always a great thing. So thanks for this. I got one last question before we kind of walk through the current issue. With this being the 14th issue, can you believe that? It's been 14 years since you started this. How has the sports chiropractic issue evolved over time? Maybe I'll ask Kent to start off on this one, just because he deals with all of the issues, and he can put that into context, if you don't mind.
Sure, thank you. I think one of the things that I've seen really evolving with it is the quality of the submissions has really improved. I think the researchers and residents, graduate students, they've all stepped their game up. So we're seeing the cases that we get, I think, are improving all the time, in the papers in general. And it used to be, back in, not that long ago, if you picked up an issue of the JCCA, the majority of the papers in it might be case reports, and that's great. There's always a place for case reports in a journal, and because they help show you what's going on. What are field practitioners actually seeing? But increasingly, this edition of the journal, we're getting higher level studies. So instead of case reports, we're seeing some more case series. We're getting some surveys. We're getting qualitative work from folks like you, Alex. We're seeing higher level studies are coming in. So it's not just a journal of case reports or an edition full of case reports. We're having higher impact articles that are showing up. And there's even been a few RCTs here and there, definitely some reviews, some high impact reviews. So seeing things like that, I think that's really been an evolution. And as we discussed before, seeing submissions come from sports chiropractors from other countries, I think it's been a definite benefit. So yeah, not just Canada. We've seen some from Europe. We've seen some from Australia, definitely from the States as well. So seeing all of that, I think really shows the growth that we're seeing, not just for the journal and that particular edition, but in terms of the sports chiropractic profession in general as well.
Yeah.
Dr. K, anything to add?
Yeah, I think I can put it very much in there. I think the quality of our papers is getting better and better. That's one of the and also the fact that more researchers are bringing the higher quality research to JCCA as well. I think that has been great, and all I see is that it's going to go higher and higher as we get it out there and as the quality goes higher. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So why don't we just kind of take a look at the current issue. For those who are tuning in now or watching this later, if you just go and search the Journal of the Canadian Chiropractic Association and go to the website, if you click on current issue, that launches you right into this current edition of the sports chiropractic issue. And so what we'll probably do for you tuning in is, myself, I had some articles in there, Dr. Kazemi did as well, and maybe we'll just really give you a briefing of what those are, and you can go check them out yourself. And then we'll just mention some of the others that are in there that you might find interesting. And the great thing is it's open access, so you can go and access it free online. So why don't I start with the first one, which is actually the article that I published. It's actually the first Delphi study for sports chiropractic to help inform a research agenda. And so this is actually a project that we've been building up for the past, I think, maybe about 3-4 years. And what it did is identify research priorities for the Canadian sports chiropractic field to inform a research agenda. So what we did is we recruited sports chiropractic experts and I guess experts from different fields, so clinicians, researchers, and leaders. And we went through the Delphi process with them, and we identified research priorities. And some of the key research priorities that came out were to focus our research on athletic outcomes. So athletic outcomes that are important to athletes, coaches, and NSOs, like in terms of increasing performance, decreasing injury, stuff like that. Obviously, other things that came up that were really important is investigating sports healthcare teams and how chiropractors integrate in those sports healthcare teams. So that was really insightful. We also identified some of the key collaborations that people wanted us to collaborate with, and sports physicians and academic institutions were kind of the top ones there. I guess the impact of this work is it helps us inform a research strategy. And the CCRF, the Canadian Chiropractic Research Foundation, actually used our study to help inform a recent request for proposals for a granting process for sports-focused research. So we're pretty excited about the impact of that one. And just a little, a nugget is we also ran a Delphi study internationally for FICS. And that study is actually under peer review right now. So we're hoping that that'll get across the line soon, and then we can share that with everyone. So that was, I guess, the first article in the edition. Next article is a study by some colleagues of ours that looked at the prevalence of shoulder problems in youth swimmers in Ontario. So that would be a good one to check out. And then we get to Dr. Kazemi's study, food cravings during the first week of concussion. Can you tell us about that, and what's the impact of that?
Yeah, so this study came up from my observation of my athletes who had concussions. And usually those they would have a craving for sugar or sugary stuff, and some of these athletes never wanted to have sugar. But the first week they usually were having some candies, asking their mom and whatever for candies, and they're feeling better. So I said, "Whoa!" So in about three case series that we published, we mentioned this, and then we said, "Okay, let's see if such things exist." And why is that? The idea was the fact that in the first, one of the things that in concussion get affected is the brain-blood barrier for glucose. And we know that the brain mainly uses glucose. And the problem becomes if the athlete is not having enough carbs, and the fact that this blood-brain barrier is already now dysfunctional, and therefore you would not get enough glucose to the brain, and that's what the whole idea behind it was. We knew that we looked at the literature review. We found out that there was such a thing, for example, with the female athletes with PMS, or even for others, and we wanted to know, is there any basis for it? So we devised a survey looking at and sending it out to 4 different organizations in Canada, and having them to distribute it to their athletes and to their members. They asked the question with regards to during the first week of your concussion, and this was go back to 12 months. Last year, how many concussions you have, how did it happen, all those demographics. But then the idea was, did you have any craving during the first week? If you had that craving, what kind of craving was? So we put sour, all kind of craving. And then the other question was, if you had the craving, did you take that food that you're craving for? And if you took that food, did it decrease your symptoms, your headache, your this and that? So it was interesting. There was not many that responded that they had that craving. So we had about and then, but what came out was very interesting, was that the female athletes between 18 to 40 years of age, mainly was that, but the younger athletes, adult athletes, female, they mainly, their number of emotional signs and symptoms, like feeling down, feeling low, and all of those emotional aspects of that we see, low energy, all of that. In actually those athletes, we saw more craving for carbohydrates. This was in line with what we saw in the female with at the time of the period and dysmenorrhea and all that as well. Same kind of craving for sweet. However, we did not find the number of people who took that craving, who took the food that they were craved for, did not change their symptoms, signs and symptoms. Now, this might have been because the size of that sample was quite low, and we didn't see it. But that was very interesting. It was a start of things. Nobody has looked at this before in the world as much as we knew. We looked at it. There was nothing on this. I think it would be a great place to start, and it would affect some of the nutritional aspects of concussion.
That's so interesting. Food cravings and concussion. I have to say, that's not the first thing that came to my mind. So I think that's really unique, and probably launching into a really interesting area of work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks. Awesome. So the next article in the issue after that is one that I was involved in, and it is recognition and conservative management of sport-related scapholunate injuries. So, this is a case series, and this came about because, I think us as chiropractors, we see a lot of wrist injuries, whether they're chronic or maybe an acute sprain, and then people have a lot of issues thereafter, especially in sports like gymnastics, where the wrist is super important. And when you examine them, you send them off for some imaging, they have scapholunate injuries, but they're not surgical. So what do you do? And so there's a big gap in the literature in this regard. So what we want to do is we want to build some literature around that. So we presented a couple of cases, and the article is written in a really pragmatic way for clinicians. So if you're interested in learning about the wrist, how to examine it, it's different. So we go through the Watson's test, different stages of instability, some imaging. So it's a really practical case series. that there really is minimal research out there guiding what do you do for these non-surgical cases. So, we were really excited about this one, and we collaborated with a radiology resident from Logan University, where they have a great diagnostic imaging program. So I urge those who have some interest in learning more about the risk to check that one out. So that's our case series. And then finishing off the current sports chiropractic issue are 3 case reports, one on capitellar osteochondritis dissecans in an elite pre-adolescent gymnast, one on symptomatic tibial tunnel ganglion cyst presenting 4 years after an ACL reconstruction. That was one that I was involved in. And it was interesting, sometimes you have these cases where after their ACL surgery, they don't do well after a couple of years, and you worry about graft laxity and stuff like that. And it turns out that this individual had a cyst in the tibial tunnel, and that was very unique. And it actually caused some hyposthesia in the saphenous nerve distribution around the knee that we could pick up clinically. So this is a case that highlights a not so common complication that can happen after many years after. So something to keep in mind of. And then the last one is a case report from a good close colleague of mine, Dr. Brad Muir. Can a structural leg length discrepancy contribute to persistent concussion symptoms? A case report. So that's really interesting. And, I'd like to highlight, we have 2 concussion articles in this sports edition, one from you, Dr. Kazemi, and one from Dr. Brad Muir. And concussion was one of the top conditions that came out of our Delphi process in terms of specific topics. In terms of a research priority, it was back pain, neck pain. Concussion was number 3. So clearly, at least here in Canada, concussion is an important topic that we should be looking at as sports chiropractors in terms of the research. And I'd just like to say that the international Delphi study was not too dissimilar from our Canadian one, which is really interesting. So just a little plug for that when that comes out. So yeah, interesting articles in this edition. Please check it out. So all you need to do is go to the JCCA website, and you can go and check out those articles. So now that we've talked through it and people have a bit of a sense of what the issues are like, I just wanted to talk just briefly about the sports chiropractic research effort with you two. And, as editor and assistant editor of the JCCA, do you have any advice for sports chiropractors in practice who are interested in helping out on the research effort, but they're not researchers, right? So they have limited time. They want to help out, they want to contribute, but it's really, it's probably not fair to ask them to do a whole project on themselves. So, what's your advice? Who wants to start?
Kazemi.
There you go.
Go ahead, Dr. Kazemi.
So in every most of our editorial, I write there that I invite all of those people who do not have any research background, but have a passion for it, or they want to get involved, is that to contact us, to contact the JCCA editorial or the Royal College of Chiropractic Sports Sciences Canada for help. We do always need cases. So if you have an interesting case that you think, wow, this is great, I would like to write it. And we always have residents and others that are looking for this kind of case, so to kind of buddy up with you guys and write it. If you have a data that you say, hey, I collected this data, could be epidemiological. Like, for example, when I started Taekwondo, I collected all the injury reports on each meets and put them all together and look at the injury profile of Taekwondo in Canada. So same kind of idea. If you have any of those and you say, I have this, but I don't know what to do with it, please email us, let us know. I was more glad to check it out and let you know if really we can do anything with it. And if we do, then we can actually get people who are interested to work together and bring it to pass.
Great. Kent, anything to add?
Yeah, I think In Canada, we have a fairly unique model in that, CMCC sort of, exists as a hub for sports chiropractic research. There's a lot of really fantastic sports chiropractic researchers right at CMCC. There's the two of you, there's folks like Brad Mears, Scott Howitt, the DeGraws. There's lots of great sports chiropractic minds right at CMCC. But then also reaching across the country, there's a lot of really great sports chiropractors, and a lot of them have been involved with projects. And then there's, there have been a number of the different chiropractic research chairs across the country who've been involved with various sports chiropractic projects. So Canada is kind of unique in that we've been able to engage people really across the country, all the way from British Columbia out to all the way to Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. We've been able to engage people all across the country. And so I think seeing that we've been able to do that in one country, I think we have the ability to do that around the world too. And there's some great chiropractic researchers who are involved with FICS, all over the world. And so I'd say that's probably an easy starting point, is try to identify, who some of the best and most productive researchers are in this world of sports chiropractic, and get in touch with them. They're always looking for people to help them with projects, or if you have something interesting that you see in your practice, or that you're seeing when you go to a competition or games, let them know, and just to start engaging. That You'll find with most researchers, if you tell them that you're seeing something, they'll get curious and they'll want to get involved with you as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think something like a case report's always a great first foray into I guess publishing. I know you've mentioned that to me many times, and just going through the process, I think that's quite valuable for sure. And maybe if I could put in my own small little biases, I think clinicians are super important in identifying what's important in practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those who just work and live in academic institutions, we might think of something, but if you see some things in practice, that's really important, and that's important information to convey. And at the FICS symposium, that's a great place to grab a research and say, hey, I've been seeing this, what do you think of that? And who knows where that can take you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think even, the example you present of concussion is a really good one, because I think chiropractors in the field have been seeing concussion patients for as long as there have been chiropractors in the field. And especially, these days with the increased awareness around sports related concussion, I think chiropractors, we know that we can play a role in the management of a lot of concussion patients. We need to build that evidence base behind what we do and how we're able to help patients.
Mm-hmm.
And involving field practitioners who are doing it every day is a really important way to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it without you, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So I have a question for Kent now. Is for those who are interested in submitting their work to the JCCA for the sports edition, obviously, but even just the JCCA, the non-sports edition, do you have any recommendations for authors?
Sure. I mean, the easiest thing is just to go to the JCCA's website, and we do have a submission policy, and that'll run people through all of the procedures. So we do have an online submission portal that the folks have to sign up with, and then they'd carry on through there. As we've discussed, we don't have an article processing fee, so that is definitely one of the things that the JCCA has going for it as well. But it's a relatively straightforward process to submit. The sports edition is our annual. It's our December edition. So for articles, that if someone was looking to get an article accepted for this upcoming sports edition, it would have to be cleared through peer review typically by the end of October is where we place our cutoff. So usually, what's the cutoff date for submissions usually? It's July 1st.
Usually end of May. Yeah, June. Yeah, with June, hard. June, July. That's what it is. Yeah.
And it's our peer review process is it is what one would expect from a peer reviewed journal. So often there will be 1 to 2 revisions required. So a person should probably go in expecting to see some revisions to their manuscripts. and kind of plan accordingly from a time standpoint.
So, on the topic of peer review, what's a typical timeline for someone to submit and get that first review back? Sometimes you hear these stories of some journals taking forever, right?
Yeah.
And what's an average for JCCA?
We shoot for, and we try our best to hold ourselves to a 1 month timeline. That's when reviewers are sent an assignment. Our peer reviewers receive their assignment. It comes with a 28-day deadline, and clock starts as soon as they accept it. So typically, we try to have our initial response back within around a month. But I mean, as everyone's seen, the pandemic definitely slowed down the peer review process for universally for all journals. So it's probably 4 weeks plus or minus 2 weeks these days. I'd say. But then one of the other things, and I'll ask any of our more experienced listeners or viewers, if you're interested in being a peer reviewer, please contact me, because we have seen a lot of peer reviewers sort of drop off the face of the earth following the pandemic. So we're always looking for fresh blood on that front too. So
just go email Dr. Kent Stuber at the JCCA. All right.
kstuber@jcca.ca.
There you go. That's the one. All right. So just some final thoughts here as we look to wrap this up. I guess, what are your thoughts on the future of the JCCA sports chiropractic issue? And maybe we'll start with Mohsen and then Kent.
I mean, my view I think our view is that to get more higher degrees and higher quality research in there and from all around the world. So that's the idea. And I think they have been going up that ladder already. But if we get more that kind of submission, that's the goal for it. The whole idea is to strengthen the evidence for sports chiropractic.
Great. Dr. Stuber?
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Kazemi completely. I think this is a really exciting time for sports chiropractic research. I think we're seeing more and more of a critical mass of researchers starting to build up. Folks like yourself getting, Dr. Kazemi already has his PhD. Alex, you'll be getting your PhD. Seeing more and more research trained sports chiropractors is only a good thing for the profession. And there's some really exciting projects out there. It's really exciting endeavors. Things like practice-based research networks that are getting launched, and we'll be collecting data from practices and publishing their results, hopefully in the JCCA Sports Edition. And I think that's really exciting, seeing that there's big projects and a lot more researchers coming down the pipes these days.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. And with that, I think we'll call that as the final discussion of the three of us. Before we sign off, one thing I would like to do is plug the FICS Symposium in Paris in June. So I'm hoping to go myself. I think Dr. Kazemi's hoping to go as well. We'll be submitting some of our work, and hopefully it'll be accepted and we can present it there. And if you're there, we'd love to talk with you. And we can go for a drink, and you can tell me all about what you're seeing in your practice, and you never know where those discussions go. And please, the JCCA sports chiropractic issue is one that's dear to my heart, and I think it's a great place for us sports chiropractors to publish. It's open access, index on PubMed, and there's no publication fee, which is fantastic. So I don't know, guys. Last final thoughts before we sign off?
Just keep on doing. Yeah. Keep on doing and keep it coming. That's all.
That's right.
I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with FICS members and of course with the two of you. So thanks for this.
Great, excellent. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in, and we hope to either see you in Paris or hear from you. Thank you.
Thanks for having us. That was great.